Welcome back to MB Capital Strategies. Today we have another episode on the topic of portfolio updates for the period of September. You've had to wait a long time, but now it's finally here again. Let's get started right away. I have already filtered the period here from September 1st until September 30th. We currently have a portfolio value as of September 30th from 69,000 euros. The value on September 1st was 67,952 euros. And 1,408 euros were invested. So I would say let's just quickly go through what generally happened during this period. Currently I had top movers like Bitfarms with a gain of 100%. Of course that was only a small portion where I was invested. Then with Valterra Platinum it has now become a somewhat larger position. I'm currently up by 236 euros there. And 50% then. Okay, also with 40%, again just a small amount here, simply because it's a bit speculative. Then Riot Blockchain with 40% or 37%. And I also bought Intel at 35% when nobody wanted Intel anymore. When Intel had a really bad reputation, then first with 33%. And those are my current securities. There have been some changes. Euro after Golden Ocean were practically merged and is now basically CMB Tech. Here I have an entry price of 2,261 euros. Share price 8.46 euros. It's actually my largest position now, currently with 267.2 shares. Yes, that's right, I'm currently in the profit here. Euronav and Golden Ocean were very high. Dividend payers back then. With CMB Tech, things are now planned a bit more conservatively. That's how they're calculating it. Between a dividend yield of 5 to 8%. For that, CMB Tech is really already in this segment. So in the shipping industry, you could almost say that they are dominating in that area, because by now we simply cover such a broad area, including some future technologies. But I think I could just make a separate video about that if you're interested. Then Flex LNG is also a very large position for me. I'll just briefly go through it a bit. I do Jella Resources. You know that I'm actually doing pretty well there, so to speak, or rather that I'm a bit more bullish in that regard. The dividend is just very attractive, so for me that's Dorian. LPG. Not much has really changed since I haven't made any further investments, except for Tungela, then for Torm, followed by Ecopetrol, and the Global Medical Property Trust. Oh, I am very sorry for that mistake. Yes, at that time I was also up by 12%. Yes, exactly. So it actually went up during this period, but before that it wasn't really in the positive. My entry price here was 5.45 euros, and the current value is 4.28 euros. It just developed relatively well during this period. I have to correct myself on that, and the same goes for here, of course. I just got a bit mixed up now, but that's simply because of this time limitation. But I also just like to remove them for a moment afterwards. And then we can see it in general, because it actually has less significance if you just look at how it was cut out in September. So what happened in September in that regard, you can only track it a little bit now. Just see what increased the most in September. And then you can already track it quite well here. So you can actually already see that especially the hard assets have picked up, generally speaking. Yes, I'll also remove that again at the end to today's date, so in September 11th, just so that we can take another very close look at it. How things developed after that, of course I won't keep that from you either, but for now I've filtered the period so that you just get a rough overview. Then let's take a look at the dividend calendar. And I would just say, how much was it for the month? Specifically, of course, for the month of September. A dividend of 613.27 euros was forecasted for that month. Let's briefly go through the highest payers. Let's just go through them quickly. That would include Orlen, where I really have a very strong yield and cost basis, because the stock is simply doing very well for me. I'll show you that, but later on. Then Pfizer, Lionel Barcel Industries with 12%. Right, let's quickly go through the top ones. Here I have Vale with 28 euros and Torm with 37 euros. Yes, that is correct. Then United Parcel Service. And then we have Panoro Energy. Hoek Autolines. Next on our list, we have Petrotal, which is currently trading at 13 euros and 59 cents per share. Then we have BWLPG, priced at exactly 21 euros per share. Following that is Wallenius Wilhelmsen, sitting at 50 euros even. Finally, we have Flex LNG, which is currently valued at 52 euros and 80 cents per share. Then we have BP here at 13 euros. Then Tungla Resources at 35 euros. And Petrobras at 9 euros and 75 cents. Then Woodside Energy and Frontline and International Seaways. Then we have MPC Container Ships and Nordic American Tankers at 8 euros and 10 cents. So now I just listed the stocks that are all a bit over 5 euros. Then we have Western Union at 9 euros 40, then Energian at 22 euros. Exactly, that was basically the forecast for September, which would then be 613 euros and 27 cents gross. Right, so let's just quickly remember that. 613 euros and 27 cents. I think I was, and then let's go through what my activities were in September in general. In total, there were 214 activities. Purchases amounted to 2,243 euros and 96 cents, and sales to 204 euros and 46 cents. I received a dividend of 656.31 euro. So a little more than predicted. And then we'll just go through everything that's been happening. I bought something again from Central Asia Metals for a total of 135 euros. Then I received another dividend from Gladstone Land. Western Union also includes the dividend. And energy at 15 euros and 98 cents. Taxes have of course already been deducted here. So everything you see here on the right side is basically net. Here too, let's just briefly go through the larger positions. I'll just go through it slowly and you can take another look if you like. There's MPC Container Ships again, then Nordic American Tankers, then Fortius Q, which was basically the dividend that Budi reinvested here. Then we have here again International Seaways with 9 euros and 49 cents, BHP with 5 euros and 56 cents, then Flex LNG with 37 euros and 57 cents. Yes, so then Global Medical Read was written off and was rebooked. Yes. There, 86 shares were converted to 17.2 units, basically revalued. Then it continues with BP. Then BWLPG. BWLPG again. That's what I was told. I actually have, in total, 2 brokers. One is Bali Bank and the other, or rather, Gelbe Capital and Straight Republic. Then I bought Central Asia Metals again here for a smaller share. There I received another dividend in general. Then Whitehaven Coal, which we already discussed in the last meme video. Wallenius Wilhelmsen with 24 euros and 8 cents here as well. Accordingly, it was. A lot of taxes were also withheld. And I think that I will probably submit that in January or February as well, so that I can reclaim the withholding tax directly from Norway, in fact. You basically have to submit a lot of applications and send everything along with them. That will probably be a bit more complicated, but I think I'm slowly getting to a point where it would probably be worth it. And then I report that back right away. And I also include the last 3 to 5 years. Depending on the country, you can even get money back where you can reclaim the withholding tax from that country, which basically can't be reclaimed through the regular tax return. Exactly. What else do we have that's interesting? I think those were probably already the bigger payers that we've seen so far. Here again, Petrotal. Then, moving on, we also have a couple of sales to discuss, specifically regarding our positions in Platinum. which I have recently sold off, and Hawaiian Electric Industries. I had bought both of them before. Just as a quick tip, practically speaking in Palatinum, I'll just go ahead and do that really quickly for you right now. For those of you who are currently having a normal period cycle, you can see here as well, probably with a somewhat smaller amount because it was also a bit more speculative, with an interest rate of 300%, realized gross profit is 29.60 euros. So not a huge amount. Exactly, bought for 64.20 euros and sold for 93.80 euros. Yeah, just listen to me. I decided against holding it any longer simply because the dividend is a bit lower, ultimately. And I already had other positions in the platinum sector which simply performed better or were just from a larger mine. Where is the profit? I did hold it speculatively since the platinum price had gone up. And then I simply realized my profit, just like with Hawaiian Electric, where I have now realized 18.18 euros, so to speak. So not a big amount either, but bought for 8.90 euros, 7 euros and 62 cents, sold for 10 euros and 6 cents. Back then it was, I would say, really at rock bottom. And I just thought, okay, maybe they'll resume the dividend because it had been suspended. Then here we also have Höchst. Autoline is at 12.48 euros. Following that on our list, we have Panoro Energy, which is currently priced at approximately 5.96 euros per share. Then we have UPS at 8.24 euros. Then here we have Thor at 15.21 euros. And again at 11.83 euros. Exactly, and here Orlen paid out 19.65 euros, 9.82 euros, and again 9.82 euros. And all-in is actually a very strong position. Well, what does strong mean? Well, it's not big, but it just had a very good increase in value. Exactly, so I basically invested a total of 496.60 euros. I had 248.61 euros at an entry price of 12.43 euros. I hold a total of 20 shares. I receive a competition dividend of 32.03 euros and fees of 12.55 euros. 60 in total with taxes. This corresponds to an unrealized gain of 267.38 euros. The reason why this is so good is that I'm almost up 100% here. The company is currently paying a dividend yield of 9.59%, a total of 2.38 euros per share. And that's the strong point here, as I always say. You can also benefit from price appreciation and, if applicable, even from dividend increases, simply because we now take the 2.38 that we receive as a dividend. And yes, my entry price was 11.72 euros per share, and if you calculate that for 100%, I get a yield and cost practically of 20% on my entry, which is of course pretty incredible. And of course that's Orlen also paid out a record dividend this year. But that's also just this crazy leverage period. It's also really intense in this area when there's simply a price increase plus the dividend is raised, or regardless of whether a price increase has been generated, that actually doesn't really matter much, I'd say. What's important is that the dividend is increased. Especially in the hard asset sector, we have several opportunities when commodity prices rise. In the long term, I'm not worried because we know we have an annual inflation rate of 3%. So the hard asset sector also has to become more expensive in that respect. Yes, we'll see that because money simply loses 3% of its value every year. And that's why, in my opinion, tangible assets should always gain value accordingly. That's also why I like investing in hard assets so much, because they're simply protected against inflation and they simply have real value behind them. Exactly, then it can also happen that you might get a 20% return on your initial investment just like that. Of course, it's not the largest amount here either, but over time you can gradually get all of this for yourself. Yes, exactly. So 613 euros and 27 cents were forecasted and I received 656 euros. Exactly. Then for October, It's actually only 209.87 forecasted. I'll just go through it quickly. We'll discuss it in detail in the October update. So there's not much happening here right now. It's not a large amount either, right? Accordingly. Yes. For November now. Currently 192.78 euros are forecasted. That is the current state of the situation. What I have not had the chance to complete just yet is there is also a detailed market forecast for 2026 on Parquet. We can certainly spend some time reviewing that as well if you would like to do so. Of course, a lot of it is simply what is practically expected, based on previous distributions and based on the increases that usually happen. To be honest, I can't really tell you exactly how that's calculated. But if we take a closer look at this data, the forecast for the year 2026 is projected to reach a total of 6,167.89. Let's also briefly set this aside for a moment so that we have the current value practically 17.11. Would have. And if we then calculate what I have actually invested, so the 6,167.89 divided by the 69,904.88 times 100, then I would have a yield on cost of 8.82% for the year 2026. That means my personal dividend yield gross would be 8.82%. In fact, when you look at the crashes and also the opportunities for growth, for example, if you just take the S&P, it's the case that the S&P on average, of course including crashes and so on, it will be about between 7 and 8% as well, statistically speaking. That puts you back at a return of 8.82% gross, which I definitely have then. Of course, there can always be defaults or even increases. That's just the current status as it is. That's something I always do as well. I track and record it in general just so I can always monitor how my portfolio has developed. There will probably be something added to that at some point later on, most likely. Maybe even for the new year 2026, either in December or in January, where I'll then go through with you what my current goals are, what I have planned for the next 5 years. Yes, I've also built a website actually, through which I now also earn a little bit of money. Then I also have affiliate partners, and I'd just like to show you what happens there as well. At the moment, I also need my own website, or rather, I'm already working on one, yes, where I can automatically receive dividend news. For my stocks, where I can also enter everything a bit, that was important to me to have my own portfolio overview. Well, let's see, I didn't actually learn all of this. That means for me, it's a very long process, but as the saying goes, you grow with your challenges. Sometimes I want to give up because I just think, okay, it's not moving forward, but that's exactly what I want to show you, what I generally do and work on. So, since purchase, it's now filtered here for my 2 portfolios. Currently, it looks like this. There are 73,741 euros invested, 69,904 euros. We have a capital gain of 3,365 euros. We have a trend yield of 11%. Total dividends amount to 4,483 euros and 23 cents. You can also take another look at the dividend dashboard in a moment. And then let's see what has generally developed here. My Trade Republic portfolio with 13,300 euros has a performance of 10% and an internal rate of return of 15%. I opened that one later on. By then, I already had a bit of experience and was more focused on dividends. That's why it's performing a bit better. Because there are also a few mistakes in here, the kind you might make at the beginning. That's why it's not adjusted, so to speak. Exactly, that's what I've already mentioned. The taxes, the fees, the net amount, the top movers with 220%, Fresnillo, Xpeng with 212%, Banco Santander with 160%. As I said, that's just how it is. Smaller positions, those were simply my initial positions, and I actually didn't want to put more money in afterwards because the price had already gone up so much. At one point I was corrected, and now I just have speculative assets. You always have to weigh your own risk a little bit. Yes, then there's China Life Insurance, which is working quite well at the moment with 100%, and Ordnance with 111%. As I mentioned earlier, yes, I just generally feel comfortable with it at the moment. We have CMB Tech here, which I already mentioned at the beginning. Here, in general, it's really quite good. With €6.74 unrealized and dividends of €27. With LNG, I'm quite in the red with minus €367 and dividends of €256.80. But it's definitely a massive dividend stock, which I simply receive here as well. And that's why I tell myself the stock is good, it's fundamentally strong, and the payouts are also very solid, usually over 10% when I hold it. And then I just ride out my price loss or simply buy more. You always have to weigh that, because for me it's already a large position. And at some point you also have to say, I just can't overweight it any further in terms of allocation. Then Tungala Resources, I'm currently also down 26%, and I've received a dividend of €155.05. My purchase price is €5.33. The current position price is €3.90. Then Doran LPG, that's €21, 14 as the entry price, currently 225 and €325 and 1 cent in dividends. Then Tor with €400 in profit and €100 in dividends, Eco-Petrol up 12%. Exactly, so you can see that's how it went with HD. Personally, in the last 2 or 3 months, I've seen a good increase here with Vale, also in the positive. Petrobras is currently in the red. But let's just go through it. You can, just take a look at it yourselves. If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to get in touch. Or just write it in the comments how things are looking for you at the moment, what your top performer is right now. I'd be interested to know as well. And what your current strategy is. Then here Lufthansa, with €52 in profit and €38.90 in dividends. Already sold once before for €120. Then Volkswagen. Then I also have Dow here. I'll just quickly continue like this. British American Tobacco with 50% and €100 in dividends that I received. Then my long-term bond with over 20 years, which I'm just holding because now I also, then accordingly I get my 4.5% in payouts. Let's just quickly check exactly. So it's 4.54%. And the next payout is expected in December, which for me is absolutely something I will also keep in my portfolio because it's also long-term accordingly. And the 4.5% dividend, or rather payout, is something I simply want to keep and secure for the long term as well. So you can already see a bit of a pattern here. Especially shipping has performed well in my opinion. If you ever want to know why that is, or if I can or should give a bit more context about it, just let me know. In the shipping sector, it's also simply, among other things, the cycles which I've talked about before, the general commodity supercycle, or understanding cycles and how the whole thing works. Especially in September and October, it's also crop failures are being calculated. And generally, if you want to invest in soybeans or something similar, you're usually at a cycle low, which you can simply take advantage of accordingly. And in January and February, things usually pick up a bit. Yes, then here with Terra Platinum, I think it's clear how I'm actually invested, and that I would say I only have maybe 25% in hard assets. Yes, I think I don't really need to go any lower than that. The only tech stock I personally hold at the moment is PayPal. And yes, if you consider Xpeng a tech company, then maybe Xpeng as well. Yes, otherwise that's basically everything. Power producers and oil mining, you know all that. And of course shipping. Shipping is kind of one of my largest positions, as you can inevitably tell here. With CMB Tech, with CMB Tech, Flex LNG, Dorian LPG, Torm. Those are my heavyweights in shipping. BWLPG as well, because I'm simply doing very well with that one too. Yes, because I also benefited from the spin-off back then from Alvin Scars. Long story short, this video is probably already way too long. But I just haven't been around for a long time and haven't given an update in 4 weeks. That's why I'm taking my time now. So let's just take a look at the dividend dashboard. That just has everything included again. The personal dividend yield is currently 4.94%, an average monthly income of 287 euros at the moment, and an annual income of 3,452 euros and 58 cents. How has my dividend developed? I think I have never shown you that before. Gross dividend of 6.19, net of 4.94, taxes of 1,008 euros, then an annual amount of 3,452 euros and 58 cents, compared to the previous period of 418 euros. Practically increased. But that's not so hard when I only had 45 euros in dividends in 2022. That's when I had just started investing and still had a lot of ETFs, or just one ETF in my portfolio. In 2023, I realized, okay, it's actually pretty nice to have a few dividends in the portfolio. And that's when I think I started to shift things around a bit. That's also why there was such a massive increase of 700%. By 2024, I was already at 1,000 euros. So that's when I recognized it even more directly. And yeah, I would say since the end of 2023, that's when my strategy developed. Okay, I want dividends and I want hard cash replacement. And since then, it has increased from 369 euros 82 to 3,008 euros 31. Yeah, that's the current status. Otherwise, what also exists, of course, are these dividend stocks here. You can also see, for example, with all in here, for example, my entry price, then the dividend of 9.59%, and my personal dividend yield of 16.76%. Then Höeg Autoliners and so on and so forth. Sometimes you just get in a bit later, like with Total Gabon. They paid out twice this year. I only ever received one dividend, but even that one is already at 11% here. So that's totally fine. And that was within a month when I got the dividends back, and they pay out in February sometimes. I'll just quickly show you. I'll just let it load for a moment, just loading quickly. And I actually think it's really great that you always have a bit of an overview there. So why do I create an overview for myself? Because that way I can just tailor it a bit more to myself in the end. It's simply so that I have the most important things, the cycles, all at a glance. I'll show you that in the new video as well. First, I still need to optimize a few things. Yeah, so that's what it looks like then. And the dividends here are now at 50%. So this year it was 90 euros. So that's pretty intense. 5-year dividend growth is at 17%. Yeah, and how was that usually indicated before?